Chapter 19. My Funny Valentine, Dakota Staton. When I found there really was more to life and music than rock and roll. When you're a teenager, you're evangelical about the music that you love. No, it's more than that. You're totally blinkered. You know what you like, you can't begin to understand anybody who doesn't like it, and you think that every other form of music is a total waste of time. Well, if I'm honest, that was me at 15 and 16, after I first heard Elvis, Little Richard, and Buddy Holly. I just wanted more Elvis, more Little Richard, and more Buddy Holly. More rock and roll, full stop. I thought that any other kind of music was old hat and boring. I wasn't interested. I certainly had no time for jazz. To me, it was terminally dull, tepid, Yawnsville, music for old people, or for anyone too square for rock and roll. Time to get hip, Daddy-O, as they used to say. I thought jazz was one great big snooze fest. I believe this is called being young and precocious. Well, luckily, you change. You can't only listen to one kind of music all your life, any more than you could only eat one kind of food. As I left my teens and became more established in my own music career, I began to find myself paying attention to music that I would previously have airily dismissed. In fact, as I grew more settled in my career and more comfortable with myself, I heard other musical artists who were a long way from rock and roll, and I realized that I liked what I heard. I began to appreciate their skill, their artistry. I thought crooners such as Frank Sinatra were alien to me. Then I listened closer to his singing, to his voice, and it clicked. Wow, he really knows what he's doing. I came across one of his classic albums, and I found myself enjoying it. Suddenly, I came around to Frankie Baby. It didn't matter that he wasn't like Elvis. I developed a more open mind, I'm glad to say, and I learned to appreciate other, more established styles of music surprisingly quickly. Through listening to the BBC Light program and my parents' records, I grew to like music that wasn't rock and roll, and yes, that even included jazz. Well, some of it anyway. In fact, I have an example of just how quickly I changed. In October 1960, just 2 years into my singing career, when I was still only 20, I went to BBC Broadcasting House to choose my 8 favourite records for Roy Plumley for the first of my 2 appearances on Radio 4's Desert Island Discs. I chose Elvis, Leon on the Belmonts, Ray Charles, and Bill Haley discs, of course. But I also selected 3 jazzy black female American singers. I chose How You Say It by actress, singer, and civil rights activist Lena Horne. Beat Out That Rhythm on a Drum by a Broadway actress and singer Pearl Bailey. And this song, My Funny Valentine by Dakota Staton. I first heard Dakota Staton on her classic 1957 debut album, The Late Late Show. I'm sure it was Mum or Dad who bought it from Marsden's, not me, but it got a lot of plays in our house, and despite my Elvis fixation at the time, I liked it. To be honest, it would be pretty impossible not to like it. It's so often about voices with me, and Dakota Staton had a fantastic voice. It had an ease and a grace that was staggering. I liked its pitch and depth and what we musicians call the legato. The way her strong tones and timbre connected so perfectly with the rhythms. Her voice glided over the surface of the music. The Late Late Show was a wonderful album, and it was also a huge hit. It got into the top 5 in America, which was extremely rare then, and still is now, for a jazz album. And my favorite track, My Funny Valentine. It was written by the legendary songwriting duo of Richard Rodgers and Lorenz Hart, and it originally came from a 1937 musical Babes in Arms, which I had never heard of. Again, not my thing as a teenager. Apparently, Hart wrote the lyrics to reflect his own insecurity that he was too short and unattractive to be loved. So, with forensic vocal precision, Dakota crooned to her amour, "Your looks are laughable, unphotographable." Over a velvet swell of music, she inquired, "Is your figure less than Greek? Is your mouth a little weak?" Yet she declared she loved her man just the way he was. "Don't change your hair for me, not if you care for me." There was a sass and a stylishness and a sexiness to Dakota's knowing vocal that was utterly beguiling. The plucked strings, swoops and swoons of woodwind, and gently tinkled piano drew me in, too. I loved rock and roll for so many reasons, but it often wasn't subtle. Here was music of subtlety and nuance and depth. Even as my own career went crazy, I never forgot my Funny Valentine or Dakota Staton. She released a handful more excellent albums in the late 50s and early 60s, including In the Night, and a great live record, Dakota at Storyville. Then, in the mid-60s, she moved to England, and I got to see her play live myself. I saw Dakota Staton sing at Ronnie Scott's, the legendary jazz club in the heart of Soho. It's such a gorgeous venue, with its stained wood, plush red seats, low lights, and velvet curtains. You could sit back, eat a meal. What did I eat at Ronnie Scott's? I don't remember exactly, but I'm afraid this was the era in Britain when chicken in a basket was the height of nightclub culinary sophistication. And enjoy a glass of wine as you watch the acts, and Ronnie Scott's was made for Dakota Staton. Dakota was extraordinary that night. She was a larger-than-life, charismatic lady, with a lovely line in between song patter and a voice that could have shattered glass. She was utterly charming, and her vocal skill and dexterity were perfect. Everybody in that luxuriant room knew that we were in the presence of genius. Dakota Staton must have sung My Funny Valentine 1,000 times by then, but she eased and coaxed her way through the song as if still enchanted by it, and still discovering new things in it. What a privilege to be there. It was another of those nights like Sammy Davis Jr., where I thought, well, I might as well give up now. I haven't yet sung My Funny Valentine, but I ventured into interpreting classic show songs and jazzy tunes in 2010 when I made my Bold as Brass album. I went to Nashville and sang compositions by the likes of Cole Porter, Hoagie Carmichael, Rodgers and Hart, George and Ira Gershwin with a 10-piece jazz band. Yet, much like when I did Solicious later, I didn't want to begin impersonating jazz singers and their mannerisms. I didn't don a beret and start scatting, nor was I trying to croon I've Got You Under My Skin like Sinatra. Instead, I simply chose tunes in that genre that I liked, and I sang them like me, in my style. Recording a more elaborate record like that is totally different from recording early rock and roll. Back then, we'd go in the studio, pick up our guitars, and let rip, letting the music take us where it wanted to. We didn't always know what we were doing, and you know what? That was half the fun of it. Making an album today is a far more sophisticated affair. I might record a track 6 or 7 times. The producer will take 2 lines from one version, 3 lines from another, 4 from another, and make a composite from the takes. Basically, he will cherry-pick the best bits, and there is the finished version. When I released that Bold as Brass album in 2010, I did 6 nights at my favorite concert venue in the world, the Royal Albert Hall. Normally in those days, I would open my set with Move It or Traveling Light, but Bold as Brass was a special album for me, so I decided to do something different. Like what? Like this. I came on in a dressing gown as if I were ill and couldn't perform. My sister Joan appeared behind me holding a giant syringe and pretended to inject me up the you-know-what, and I came to life, threw off my dressing gown to reveal a tuxedo, and fired into Fly Me to the Moon. It was so much fun and the crowd loved it. I'm so glad that I diversified away from only listening to rock and roll and discovered terrific singers such as Dakota Staton. Even now, at my ripe old age, I still try to be broad-minded and to keep my ears open for great new music, whatever style or genre it may be.